October 2003. Tourists flood the gates of Schönbrunn Palace. Cameras click. Guides raise flags. School groups shuffle past marble statues. Among them walks a well-dressed Canadian man. Quiet, polite, unremarkable. His name is Gerald Blanchard. He blends perfectly into the crowd, nodding as the tour guide speaks about emperors and assassinations, about silk gowns and royal scandals. No one notices his eyes. They are not on the paintings. They are on the ceiling, counting cameras, tracking their sweep, measuring blind spots. As the group enters the treasure gallery, Gerald slows his steps. Pressure plates beneath the carpet, infrared beams across door frames, guards rotating every few minutes. He memorizes everything. This isn't sightseeing. This is reconnaissance. When the group moves on, Gerald lingers. 1 second. 2. His hand reaches out. The latch clicks. Soft. Perfect. No alarm. He smiles faintly and rejoins the tour like nothing happened. Before leaving the palace, he stops at the gift shop and buys a cheap souvenir. A plastic replica of the CC Star. $20. No one questions it. No one notices. No one realizes that in exactly 24 hours, this quiet tourist will execute the most audacious museum heist in modern history. A crime that will embarrass an empire, stun international police, and rewrite security manuals across Europe. Because tomorrow night, Gerald Blanchard will fall from the sky. To understand that, we have to go back to a quiet boy in Winnipeg, who loved taking things apart. Gerald Blanchard grew up in Winnipeg, far from the world of helicopters and armored vests. His childhood home was quiet, ordinary, unremarkable. But from an early age, it became clear Gerald was wired differently. While other kids played street hockey or rode bikes until dark, Gerald preferred the kitchen table. Not for homework, but for disassembly. Alarm clocks, radios, old VCRs scavenged from neighbors' basements. He spread their insides across the surface like puzzle pieces, mapping how gears meshed, how circuits spoke to each other. Family members later told Canadian reporters they'd find piles of dismantled electronics under his bed. Not broken, studied, cataloged, every screw accounted for. According to court psychiatric assessments filed years later, Gerald showed an unusual level of hyperfocus for his age. When something caught his interest, the world disappeared. Hours passed unnoticed. He wasn't destructive, he was methodical, curious in a way that felt almost compulsive. Teachers described him as quiet, not shy, just elsewhere. He rarely spoke in class, but when he did, it was precise, analytical. He asked questions most students didn't think to ask. Why does this work like that? What happens if you change this part? Who decided it should be built this way? It wasn't enough for Gerald to know what something did. He needed to know why. That mindset became his foundation. Court psychologists later wrote that he displayed advanced pattern recognition skills. He noticed routines, repetition, predictability, the hidden logic behind human systems. To Gerald, the world wasn't random. It was coded. And code could be cracked. Family interviews published in Canadian media painted a picture of a boy who didn't fit neatly into social boxes. He wasn't rebellious. He wasn't aggressive. He simply lived in his own mental laboratory, constantly testing theories. If a radio picked up certain stations, he wanted to know why others were blocked. If a VCR refused to record certain channels, he wanted to know who decided that. So he bypassed it. Not for profit, not for fame, just to prove he could. This wasn't mischief. It was mastery. In his early teens, Gerald's family moved south to Nebraska for his stepfather's work. The town was small, quiet, the kind of place where everyone noticed when something went wrong. And something did. A local bank initiated foreclosure proceedings on their home over a shortfall of just a few $1,000s. To the institution, it was paperwork, a file, a procedure. To Gerald's family, it was everything. According to court records and later media interviews, Gerald sat silently as his mother read the letter. Her hands shook, her voice broke. Years of stability reduced to legal language and deadlines. Then came the knock. A sheriff's deputy stood at the front door and taped the foreclosure notice to the frame. Formal, polite, unmoved, just doing his job. Gerald watched from the hallway. He watched his mother cry at the table. Watched men in suits quote statutes and policies. Watched the house become a line item in a ledger. In that moment, something crystallized. Gerald realized institutions didn't care about stories, or effort, or tears. They cared about rules. And rules, to him, looked an awful lot like code. Code could be studied, understood, broken. That day taught him something school never could. Power followed procedures. Procedures followed logic. Logic followed design. And design always came from people. People who made assumptions. Court psychologists would later describe this as a turning point. Gerald didn't just feel wronged, he felt challenged, as if the system had issued him a puzzle. This is how we operate. This is what you can't change. He took it personally. From that point on, his curiosity shifted direction. No longer just devices. Now it was organizations, systems, bureaucracy, banks, police, governments. He started asking different questions. Who controls this? What rules do they rely on? What happens if those rules fail? This wasn't about money. It never really was. It was about control. About proving that even the biggest institutions, the ones that decide who keeps their home and who loses it, were just machines built by humans. And humans made mistakes. That foreclosure notice didn't make Gerald angry in the way people expect. It made him focused. Cold. Determined. Years later, detectives would say this was the moment he chose his enemy. Not a person, not a place, but the system itself. And from that day forward, Gerald Blanchard didn't just want to understand how things worked. He wanted to beat them. By his mid-teens, Gerald's curiosity had crossed a line. It started small. Retail stores, electronics aisles, bright boxes stacked neatly under fluorescent lights. According to Nebraska juvenile court records, Gerald began shoplifting portable music players and cordless phones. But stealing wasn't the real trick. Returning them was. He used his school's photocopier to forge receipts. Walked back into the same stores days later, smiled politely, asked for a refund, and got cash. Loss prevention assumed a confident teenager with paperwork wasn't a thief. Gerald identified the assumption and exploited it. Over and over. By 16, he had accumulated enough money to buy a house outright in cash. No mortgage, no questions asked. While classmates worried about driver's licenses, Gerald was signing property documents. Then came the night everything almost ended. A friend asked for help torching a rusted car for an insurance payout. They drove to a remote cornfield, poured gasoline, too much gasoline. When Gerald struck the match, the explosion lit the sky orange. Sirens followed almost immediately. His friend ran. Gerald didn't. He walked toward the patrol cars with his hands visible, pretending to be a concerned witness. Officers smelled fuel on his jacket. He was arrested on the spot. Inside the Sarpy County Sheriff's Station, deputies placed him in an interrogation room. A skinny teenager in a farm town didn't seem like a flight risk. They left him alone to talk outside. Big mistake. Police reports later described the room: cinder block walls, metal table bolted to the floor, and a drop ceiling with standard acoustic tiles. Gerald studied it, counted the grid, estimated the crawl space, climbed onto the table. He pushed a tile aside and pulled himself up into the darkness, crawled across cold ductwork, heard officers calling his name below. He kept moving. Finally, he dropped through another tile into a storage room, slipped out a rear fire exit into the night. In the parking lot, his friend waited in an idling car, listening to a Radio Shack scanner. Police chatter filled the speakers. Suspect in the vents. Locked down the building. Gerald sprinted, dove into the car, and they sped away. Before leaving, he grabbed 2 souvenirs from an unattended desk: a police badge and a Motorola radio. That night changed him. For the first time, he realized something powerful. Police radios were open. Anyone could listen. The sheriff's department had assumed a teenager wouldn't check the ceiling, assumed he wouldn't walk toward cops, assumed their frequencies were secure. Every assumption was a vulnerability. According to court documents, this escape became a turning point. Gerald stopped seeing law enforcement as untouchable. They were just another system. And systems could be beaten, By his mid-20s, Gerald Blanchard had refined a dangerous idea. According to RCMP case files and his own post-arrest interviews, he no longer saw banks as buildings. He saw them as systems. Vaults followed schedules. Alarms followed circuits. Cameras followed fixed angles. Predictable. The only wild card was human response, especially police. Gerald believed if you could control that variable, you controlled everything. Most criminals rushed. They hit a target and ran before sirens arrived. Gerald flipped the formula. Instead of escaping the police, he planned around them. He later called it the reverse stakeout. Rather than watching the bank, he watched the cops. He would quietly plant surveillance devices weeks before a job. Cheap hardware, off-the-shelf tech, nothing exotic. According to court testimony, he used things anyone could buy at electronic stores. Then he listened. Dispatch chatter. Patrol habits. Who responded first? Who talked too much? He learned how long it took units to arrive after an alarm. 6 minutes, 7, 8. He didn't guess. He tested. Blanchard admitted to triggering false alarms on purpose, just to time responses. Each test gave him data. He wrote it down, compared patterns, built a model. To him, police response wasn't chaos. It was math. And math could be solved. The plan was simple. On the real night, he would work inside that response window. Not a second longer. By the time police arrived, he'd already be gone. They wouldn't chase him. They'd guard an empty crime scene. Investigators later described it as one of the most calculated criminal strategies they'd ever encountered. He wasn't outrunning police. He was outweighting them. Blanchard explained during debriefings that the goal wasn't speed, it was timing, precision, discipline, knowing exactly when to stop. He never panicked, because he already knew when the sirens would start. This approach allowed him to pull off thefts without dramatic escapes or confrontations. No smashed windows, no gunfire, no chases, just silence. And confusion. Police would arrive, sweep the building, find nothing. False alarm. Premises secure. But somewhere nearby, Gerald would be listening, smiling. To him, this wasn't crime. It was proof of concept. A living experiment. He wasn't stealing money anymore. He was stealing certainty, showing institutions they weren't as smart as they thought. Police analysts later said this philosophy made Blanchard uniquely dangerous, not reckless, not impulsive, calculated, patient. He didn't gamble. He engineered. And with the reverse stakeout perfected, Gerald was ready for his boldest test yet. A brand new bank branch. Fresh systems. Fresh assumptions. The perfect laboratory. In the spring of 2004, a brand new Canadian Imperial Bank of Commerce branch prepared for its grand opening in suburban Winnipeg. Fresh paint. New carpets. 7 brand new ATMs loaded with cash for opening day. To Gerald Blanchard, it looked like a laboratory. According to Winnipeg police statements and internal bank reports later entered into court, Blanchard slipped into the building several nights before opening. He didn't steal anything. He planted. Behind a ceiling vent above the manager's desk, he hid a pinhole camera. Near the alarm panel, he installed a baby monitor transmitter. Under a service counter, he stuck a small audio bug. Cheap devices. Store-bought. Perfectly legal to purchase. For 2 weeks, Gerald parked a rented van nearby and listened. He mapped everything. Security guards walked 12-minute loops. Cleaners arrived Tuesdays and Thursdays. 2 women who never checked the server room. He watched the manager disarm the alarm each morning. 6 digits, captured clearly on his hidden camera. He memorized it. One night, he tested the system. Gently jiggled a door until the sensor tripped. Then he waited in his van. Police arrived in just over 8 minutes. They checked the doors, looked through windows, called it a false alarm. Gerald wrote it down. 8 minutes. On the night before the grand opening, he returned. Just after midnight, his girlfriend waited down the block as lookout. Gerald entered using the real code. No alarm, no sound. He went straight to the ATM room. 7 machines, each loaded with roughly $100,000. He worked fast. 4 minutes, 3 machines empty. 6 minutes, 6 machines cleared. He deliberately left the 7th untouched. A false trail, something to confuse investigators. At 7 minutes, he zipped the duffel bag, around $750,000 inside. He exited calmly, locked the door behind him, drove away with headlights off. 8 minutes and 14 seconds after he entered, police cruisers arrived. Lights flashing, weapons drawn. They searched. Everything looked normal. Doors locked, windows intact. They radioed dispatch. False alarm. Premises secure. 3 blocks away, Gerald listened through his baby monitor feed as police cleared the scene. Monday morning, the branch manager unlocked the doors. 6 ATMs stood open. Cash gone. Metal pried with surgical precision. The 7th machine remained untouched. She screamed. Investigators found no fingerprints. No forced entry. The DVR hard drives had been physically removed. The alarm log showed a perfect disarm using the correct code. Winnipeg police called it one of the most baffling bank thefts in city history. To Gerald, it was proof. The reverse stakeout worked. The police had guarded a crime scene without knowing a crime had even happened. For weeks after the ATM heist, Winnipeg detectives chased ghosts. No witnesses. No fingerprints. No forced entry. But one detail didn't disappear: the getaway vehicle. According to court filings and rental company records, Gerald had used a rented van during the surveillance phase, and for all his brilliance, he made a shockingly simple error. He signed the paperwork with his real name, Gerald Daniel Blanchard. When investigators finally pulled the rental records, the results stunned them. This wasn't a random petty thief. This was a name already buried deep in police databases. Officers ran it, and their stomachs dropped. Blanchard's file connected him to a series of unsolved, tech-enabled thefts across multiple Canadian provinces. Burglary reports with eerie similarities. Alarms bypassed. No forced entry. Security footage missing. Years before the Winnipeg ATM theft, Gerald Blanchard had already pulled off a crime that stunned Europe. The target was legendary. The CC Star, a 10-pointed diamond hair ornament once worn by Empress Elizabeth of Austria, a royal icon assassinated in 1898. At its center sat a Baroque pearl, surrounded by 27 diamonds. The jewel was displayed at Schönbrunn Palace in Vienna, a 1,400-room fortress, protected by motion sensors, pressure-sensitive floors, infrared beams, roving guards. According to statements from the Austrian Ministry of Culture, it was considered museum-grade security, cutting edge for its time. To Gerald, it was irresistible. He posed as a wealthy Canadian tourist and booked a private tour. While guides recited imperial history, Gerald studied the room: camera angles, sensor placement, patrol patterns. Then he noticed something: a side window with an old-fashioned brass latch. No electronic sensor, just metal. When the group moved on, he pretended to admire a tapestry and quietly flipped it open. On his way out, he stopped at the gift shop and bought a replica. Plastic diamonds. Fake pearl. $20. The next night, a rented Cessna climbed above Vienna. Gerald sat inside with a parachute strapped to his back. The pilot banked over the palace grounds. Then Gerald jumped. He aimed for the east wing roof. A sudden gust of wind slammed him onto sloped tiles. He skidded toward the edge, hanging for seconds above a stone courtyard, fingers scraping for grip. He survived. Heart pounding, he stashed his parachute and crawled to the unlocked window, slipped inside. The treasure room glowed in low light. The CC Star sat under glass. Beneath it, a weight sensor monitored every gram. Gerald removed the dome and made the swap. Real jewel out. Replica in. For a terrifying moment, a red light blinked, then turned green. The weight difference fell within tolerance. No alarm. He resealed the case, exited through the window, and rappelled down a drain pipe. By dawn, he was on a train to Munich. 2 weeks later, Austrian officials proudly displayed the jewel to the media. No one noticed. The fake stayed on display for a month before curators discovered the switch. By then, the real CC Star sat in a shoebox in Blanchard's grandmother's basement in Winnipeg. Interpol logged the theft as one of the boldest museum crimes in modern history. Gerald had parachuted onto a palace roof and walked out with a crown jewel. By 2006, Gerald Blanchard was no longer just a Winnipeg problem. He was federal. The RCMP formed a covert task force. They called it Project Kite. According to RCMP press conferences, the name symbolized a predator circling silently overhead, watching, waiting. For months, investigators built a web around him. Wiretaps, surveillance, tracking aliases, monitoring known associates, office walls filled with maps and photographs. Post-it notes connected cities across Canada. Patterns emerged. Everywhere Blanchard went, strange thefts followed. Then came the break. In late January 2007, a wiretap caught something unusual. Gerald's voice, low and rushed. "I can't talk right now," he whispered. "I'm in the middle of something." Cell towers lit up. RCMP technicians triangulated the signal in real time. He was inside a credit union in Chilliwack, British Columbia. Mid-heist. On January 23rd, at 4:30 in the morning, tactical teams moved. Simultaneously, in Vancouver, officers breached Blanchard's condo. Flashbang grenades exploded. Armed teams flooded the room. Gerald ran for a window and stopped. Rifles filled his vision. No ceiling tiles. No vents. No escape. The ghost was finally cornered. At the same time, RCMP units raided storage lockers and associate homes across 3 provinces. According to search warrant inventories, what they found looked like a spy movie. Police scanners, lockpicking kits, stacks of fake IDs, wigs and disguises, encrypted phones, cash in 6 currencies, unopened baby monitors, proof of every method he'd described. Then came the final location, his grandmother's house in Winnipeg. Officers pried open a crawl space in the basement. Inside, wrapped in cloth, sat the stolen CC Star. Exactly where Gerald had hidden it nearly a decade earlier. The crown jewel was real. The impossible heist, confirmed. RCMP held a press conference later that day. They called it one of the most complex investigations in Canadian history. A criminal who used technology, patience, and psychology to defeat institutions for years. Gerald Blanchard's run was over. But in the interrogation room, investigators would soon realize he wasn't finished. Not yet. Because Gerald had been listening to them for years. And now, he was about to prove it. The interrogation room was cold and windowless. 2 senior detectives from Project Kite sat across from Gerald Blanchard. Between them lay thick folders, wiretap transcripts, photos, inventories of seized equipment, and evidence from across 3 provinces. They expected silence, or a lawyer. Instead, Gerald leaned back and smiled. "How's Karen doing?" he asked calmly. "Still teaching 3rd grade at Balmoral Hall?" The detective froze. Karen was his wife. Her school was private, unlisted. Gerald turned to the second officer. "And your son, James. Bantam hockey team this year, right?" "Left wing." Both men stared at him. According to court transcripts, Gerald had learned these details by listening. For years, through unencrypted police radios, casual phone calls from squad cars, conversations officers assumed were private. He hadn't just tracked their movements, he tracked their lives. In that moment, the power shifted. But the evidence was overwhelming. Surveillance footage from Chilliwack, fingerprints on his ATM replica, the recovered CC Star, storage lockers full of gear. Gerald faced a possible 164 years. He chose to cooperate. Over weeks of debriefings, he explained everything. How he used baby monitors to clone alarm signals. How he scanned dispatch frequencies. How he built full-scale ATM replicas in his garage to rehearse. How he timed police responses using fake alarms. One detective later admitted to the media, "I've never seen a suspect explain in such detail how he beat us." Austria reclaimed the jewel. It returned to Schönbrunn Palace under heavily upgraded security. In court, Gerald pleaded guilty to multiple charges: theft, fraud, conspiracy, international trafficking of stolen cultural property. The judge sentenced him to 8 years in federal prison. He served just under 4. Paroled. By 2010, something strange happened. Security firms began hiring him. Banks paid him to test their alarms. Police departments asked him to audit radio systems. Loss prevention teams learned to think like criminals. The Fox had been hired to redesign the henhouse. Across Canada, police switched to encrypted digital radios. Banks changed ATM protocols. Randomized schedules. Redundant sensors. Gerald didn't just steal. He forced institutions to evolve. Years later, he told a journalist, "When you're a kid, everyone dreams of robbing a bank. I actually did it." The media called him the world's most ingenious thief. But his real legacy wasn't the money. It was the lesson that every system, no matter how advanced, is built by humans. And humans make assumptions. Gerald Blanchard proved those assumptions could be broken. Any system built by humans contains human assumptions. And assumptions can always be broken. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to subscribe to the channel for more real, unbelievable true crime documentaries like this one. Share this video with a friend who loves smart criminal stories. You never know who might be watching Police Frequencies right now. Your support helps us keep bringing you the